Hi, my name is Trent Giddings, and I want to talk today about the history of World War I, World War I propaganda, and how helped the U.S. win World War I. So starting off with a brief history of World War I, it started on June 28, 1914, when the Serbian nationalist Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, and basically it split Europe into two sides. I won't go into a whole lot about it because it's kind of irrelevant to my topic, but I do want to talk about isolationism, which dictionary.com defines as the policy or doctrine of isolating one's country from the affairs of other nations. Basically, it's we don't want to be a part of the other nations, the war. We want to be worried about our own affairs in our own country. And this was basically the thought and the idea of the United States at the time, because we weren't a part of World War I, and it was kind of a national discussion: should we be a part of World War I? Should we be involved in any way? So the U.S. entry into World War I. It all started with the Zimmerman Telegraph. Basically, according to the U.S. Office of the Historian, the Zimmerman Telegraph was a telegraph sent by the Germans to Mexico, promising the Texas, New Mexico, Arizona inland in exchange for efforts to basically knock out the U.S. in the war. We ended up receiving this telegraph, and we entered World War I on April 17, 1917, after our president at the time, Woodrow Wilson, held a joint session in Congress. So basically, at this point, Woodrow Wilson has developed the CPI and the DPP. Those stand for the Committee of Public Information and the Division of Pictorial Publicity. Now, according to Tyler Stump's Victory Through Art, this Committee of Public Information was headed by George Creel, who you can see on the right, who assembled 279 artists, 33 cartoonists, to basically create posters and works of art that'll get the United States and the American population to do a couple different things: enlist in the Army, grow food, different things like that. It was the importance of volunteerism and military enlistment at the time was the main priority for us. And this was at a time period where TV and radio didn't exist, so these kind of posters really made a much larger impact than they would today. So the first one I want to talk about is Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam. I put a couple funny memes just kind of show that it's still relevant today. Uncle Sam, U.S., the initials United States, that's where it came from. This one on the left is the original poster. And according to Chris Capizzola's Uncle Sam Wants You, it was made by James Montgomery Flagg. He got the idea from a British recruitment poster made by Alfred Leet. The image still stands today with the memes, but basically he got the idea just looking at it in his office, and he made the cover of Leslie's on July 1916, which was a pretty big magazine at the time, and this really was a monumental image and got significant numbers of people who enlisted in the Army. The next kind was an anti-German poster. This one I kind of put a funny LeBron thing, so it was kind of similar to how they looked at the time. It's kind of funny. Henry Hobbs created this one. It gave a face to the enemy instead of actually telling people to enlist. It gave you a reason or an antagonist to why you should enlist. The club in the gorilla's hand right here says Kultur, which is German for culture, and he's got a German hat that says militarism on it. Many German Americans, it should be noted, faced persecution due to posters like this at the time. But it got a lot of people to enlist in the Army. Sex sells is the third different category to get men to enlist in the Army. Howard Chandler Christie was the big prevalent at the time of creating these girls and putting them on posters and magazines and different things at the time. It was a different tactic, and basically like Playboy, Maxim, those kind of media outlets didn't exist. So this drew a much bigger reaction from then than it would in today's society. Production posters. American Red Cross really headed up these production posters. It was a different message. Instead of a list, it was mainly targeted at women, housewives, daughters, to produce socks, shirts, different clothing items that we would need in the war, because the war not only was just fought in fighting, it was fought in materials, supplies, different things like that. The American Red Cross was the main producer of these, and basically we needed as many supplies as we could get. Food rationing was the last kind of thing, poster we had. At the time, all the men were enlisting in the Army, so they were getting away from the farms, which meant there was less food to go around, so we needed people to be saving their food, eating more of it, buying less of it, making sure as much food could go overseas with the soldiers as possible. Schools, like you can see in this one, would create gardens as part of their curriculum to send over to the troops as part of like something to do during the day. At the time, Herbert Hoover was the head of the USDA who hired the artists to create these, obviously becoming the president a couple of years later down the line. So in conclusion, mass recruitment was needed in the war effort, not only for military enlistment, for production, for food rationing, different things like that, which really helped us win the war, because without an entire population being able to do the same thing and not being on the same page, we would have lost, and it would have been chaos. Uncle Sam, anti-German Christy girls, those were all different tactics to get men to enlist. Production posters got women and children to be able to produce different items. And food rationing posters got people to save their food. The war was an effort on all fronts, not just for fighting and enlisting, but producing and food. And these are my lovely sources. Are there any questions?